Welcome to Wholesale Change. It's the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we offer thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you, because if you're on this show, you're probably a wholesale change agent too, just like my business partner, the wise and wonderful dress like C3PO, Jonathan Bein. Jonathan, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Ian Heller. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So we're going to introduce our guest in a couple of minutes. I'm thrilled to have him. He was, one of the best speakers at our recent AI event. This is our first wholesale change since our AI event. We put months into the planning. We're so excited. What happened at the beginning of the meeting, Jonathan?
Somebody came down with COVID.
It was me. I missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that thrust Jonathan with like 20 minutes notice and emceeing the whole thing. And I heard you did a great job. So thanks for jumping into the breach. But I'm sorry to miss the meeting from 100 feet away in my hotel room.
It's like missing your kid's wedding.
It was just about like that. Yeah.
We wanted to create a little area near the stage where we just put a moat around it and put you on the other side. You were missed that much.
Well, thank you. If we had another half hour, we would have done it. But, we got fantastic reviews from attendees and from sponsors. And one of the best speakers apparently was Brooks Hamilton, who's our guest today. So we'll get to Brooks in just a minute. But before we do that, we got to pay the bills. So we're going to start by talking about this fantastic program that Jonathan created. So I can tell you it's fantastic. It's called Customer Experience RX. This is an incredible system to get deep dive NPS data on your distribution company, right? So it's not just an overall score, which is you say, Jonathan, is just, what do you call it? Like a blood panel when you go for your physical?
Yeah, it's like getting a temperature when you get the NPS.
Got it. Right. And all this other stuff is the blood panel, right? So, right. And I mean, you could see like the pull down menus, and you can sort this by industry and segment and region and job function, and you get all this information about importance versus performance. You get benchmarking data. I mean, it's an amazing system you built, Jonathan, and I'm so happy to be associated with it by sheer accident. Although I had the good sense to pick the right business partner. So
I had the good sense to learn what you taught me about doing customer research. Ian.
I don't know, man. It's an amazing system, and it's selling like hotcakes. So if you're a distributor and you want a really cost-effective, amazing way, not just to get NPS data, but how your sales reps are performing and what customers think of your inventory levels and your pricing and your customer service and a lot more, reach out to Jonathan at jbein@distributionstrategy.com to learn about this amazing system that he's built that's really getting great adoption. We also want to thank our good friends at SAP. SAP has driven business software innovation for more than 50 years, and that tradition continues today with integrated business AI and generative AI capabilities that are ready to transform the way wholesale distribution customers of all sizes operate. SAP's embedded AI capabilities are relevant, helping distributors make agile decisions and automate tasks based on your business needs. They're reliable with AI that's trained on your industry and company data, driven by SAP process expertise in apps you use daily. And they're responsible. SAP's AI capabilities are based on leading ethics and data privacy standards that's never been more important than it is today. To see how SAP customers are using AI today and learn more, visit sap.com/AI, and you can explore SAP's full portfolio for wholesale distributors at sap.com/industries. So thank you to SAP for sponsoring today's Wholesale Change episode. We really appreciate it. Now let's bring in our guest, the amazing Brooks Hamilton. He's the founder of Hamilton AI Strategy Advisors. We're delighted to have him. He did a great job at our event. He's going to talk about how to get started in AI and has a deep background in it. Brooks, how are you today, my friend?
I'm great.
Good. It's great to have you here. To our good audience here, please feel free to jump in with questions anytime. Please use the Q&A button. We will get every question, squeeze every question we can into Brooks. And Brooks, you were at Zilliant for a long time, but now you're off on your own, doing your own thing. Tell us a little bit about your business before we jump into the content today.
Yeah, I am. I'm here primarily to help CIOs and CTOs figure out what they're going to do for their AI plan, and also help, I think, all distributors trying to determine, where do I get started? How do I begin this path? Seems like a big deal. How do I break it down?
Got it. And so that's one of the initial obstacles, right? Is, I mean, how do I put my plan together? Where do I get started with AI? So let me take this slide down so we can just see our smiling faces here. Jonathan, you had the pleasure of seeing Brooks speak. I, of course, missed him.
Brooks, you were amazing.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're a hard act to follow.
Well, you certainly nailed that one.
Yeah, I didn't have to follow anybody. I just got out of Dodge.
Well played, Ian. Well played.
Yeah, well, when in doubt, flee.
Brave Sir Robin ran away.
You're aging us, buddy. So, Brooks, where do you get started?
Yeah, I think the easiest place is more likely than not, you already have individuals who are in your organization that are using AI, especially generative AI, in one way or another. Whether it was fully sanctioned or entirely unsanctioned, it's in use. The most likely spots to, I think, take a look are your marketing department. And if there are emails that are coming from people who might not have written the most verbose emails before, and now they're spot on, that might be a good spot to begin.
So if you've noticed an upgrade in the quality of somebody's communication,
yeah,
credit it to.
And if it begins with "hope you're well."
Yeah, so if your husband is suddenly writing these great poems for you and he's never written a poem for you before, be suspicious.
Be suspicious. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the business version of that is if someone's business communications are, but this is a hazard, right? I mean, like the phishing emails that we've gotten have been notorious for having misspellings and bad grammar because the writers aren't native English speakers. But yeah. I mean, that's a vulnerability, right? Because now anybody can write a perfect email.
Yeah. Yeah. In pretty much any language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are definitely some risks associated with any new technology that comes out. This one, I think, also includes a bevy of risks as well. That said, my firm impression is this is something that's going to transform the business and social landscape. So getting started at some point and in some way is better than sticking your head in the sand.
So if we think about Gartner hype cycle, right, which has peak of expectations or inflated expectations, trough of disillusionment and crawling out, yeah. Where are we with AI?
Yeah, I have kind of two fundamental questions about the Gartner hype cycle itself. So one of them is, how accurate is it going to be for any given technology? And then how accurate is it for a general purpose technology? So it's like, where are we on the Gartner hype cycle for electricity? Well, we're probably somewhere in the having crawled out of the trough. In terms of the AI side of it, I think that we're on that upward leading edge. But shockingly, I don't think that we're either at the top of it, nor about to crest and fall down.
Did you just say shockingly about electricity?
It's the electricity of the brain, man. It doesn't even know when it's doing it.
So are you saying you don't think the Gartner hype cycle is the right filter to right lens to look at this through?
I think it is helpful.
Okay.
because we're all, at least in terms of like, we're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And there were some questions I received from some experienced CEOs that were really along the lines of, is this just more crypto crap?
Right.
Is this the tech news cycle really getting going, but there's not a lot behind it? I think what we're seeing, both in terms of just as we as individuals have been using like ChatGPT, we've seen it change both kind of our communication and communication styles over the past 12 months, but then we've seen it change, and some of it for better, some of it for worse. But we're about to go through one more material change, whereas before it was all text-based. We're now about to enter into these models being able to speak with us, and both to be able to show it images and for it to create images and videos in response. So that's going to get a little bit weird.
Yeah. Let's talk about sort of maybe different levels of AI. We were picking some of these ideas around, preparing for the show. So one idea of AI is what I'm calling AI as a feature, right? So that could be using the transcription service from Zoom, which we don't have on this thing, by the way. Ian, we might want to use that, by the way. It would help for creating the blogs afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to think of that.
I knew you were. I was just reading your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's call it AI as a feature, where it's not the main thing, but it's there, right? And then the next level would be task-specific AI. So maybe you're using AI to do better pricing, or using AI for managing rebates, or doing AR reconciliation, or cross-selling, or perhaps something in the warehouse, right? The third would be generative AI, which I completely missed, by the way. I thought we were 15 to 20 years away from that. And the last would be general purpose AI. So maybe if you could talk about those ideas, and then let's start to from there move into how do people get started.
Yeah, I really like that framework, Jonathan, because it helps differentiate kind of the applications that we see and how much change we're going to need to introduce into our organizations, as well as the fears that are associated with each of them. So I think it's a great framework. For the feature level one, this is certainly where people are picking their products, especially those products or services that might be a little bit more digitally oriented to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So, there is a great set of tools out there, like you pointed out, Zoom. Hey, how can I make Zoom better? I'm going to go ahead and slap on speech to text, and then I'm going to further that by being able to summarize certain points. Excellent. I don't think anybody's going to complain or be afraid of those capabilities, and maybe unless you're a court reporter, but even so, there's not a lot of that out there. Most people would like to have a transcription, and that's why they take notes. Most people would like to have a meeting summarized, and that would save them some time afterwards. That next, in terms of task specific, there are all kinds of types of AI, and I think during the conference you talked about all the different types. What were some of those?
I looked at it from a text standpoint. I tried not to bit dive, but so I was looking at language understanding, whether it's text or speech, image recognition, Gen AI, and then optimization, right?
Yeah, all different types of technologies that can be applied to the task. In my background, I saw optimization being used for pricing. I saw some more general purpose algorithms, such as clustering, used to identify similar types of customers and purchasing patterns. And those are great techniques, but they're also quite different. from the techniques we see being rolled out over the past 12 months with ChatGPT. And so we said, all right, well, which one of those is real AI? The answer is all of them. It is data automation where we're asking a computer of some sort to make a decision and to help our cognitive processes.
We do have a question from Amit or Amit. Sorry, Amit, if I'm saying your name wrong. Question for Brooks, without naming names, what are the 3 most successful applications of AI in distribution that you've seen? And you can name names if you want. We don't care.
Yeah. When I think about distribution, to me, it's a really fascinating area. Because it is not just about how well can you execute the task, but it is how well can you organize the data around these tasks. And as you become larger and larger as an organization, the opportunity for more organization takes place and more efficiency takes place. But similarly, the amount of complexity really drives a lot higher. Or becomes a lot higher. So I think some of the more impressive areas where I've seen it, and let me just talk about the more general AI rather than generative specifically, because that's quite new into the distribution realm, is route planning in order to make sure that you are using one of your most expensive combined resources, which are trucking, as well as human capital in there. The second is being able to pull the lever of pricing. And then the third is really warehouse optimization. And I'm going to throw a fourth, which is demand forecasting in order to understand how to best use your working capital.
Okay, so you've got the sort of the sales side of things, right? Or the pricing side of things, I guess. So you said pricing, route optimization for delivery, and then warehouse optimization, and then forecasting, which is working capital. What about like customer facing, like CRM, marketing automation? Are you seeing some innovations there that are making a difference?
On the generative AI side, I think I'm just beginning to see some of these come out. And one is in some of the improvements that Salesforce has made as they're beginning to put together their auto logging for opportunities. And then the other is opportunity identification that I've seen from a few vendors out there that is really kind of great to combine with other marketing automation to drive some of those sales improvements. What have you?
Well, go ahead, Jonathan. No.
I like that you mentioned optimization, like the route optimization. This is one of the things we talk about at the conference. So the literature on optimization is vast, and it spans from AI to what's known as operations research, linear programming, if people have heard that kind of terminology. But one of the things that's really hard about that is just the number of choices you have. I mean, if you have a driver that has to go to 10 different stops, there's literally 3.6 million different possibilities. And if you go to 11, then it goes to 40 million. If you go to 12, it goes to 500 million, right? And so there's a whole class of problems. By the way, Gen AI has a voice in this. I mean, they have something to say about optimization, which is astounding. But there's just a whole set of optimization type problems in the warehouse and in supply chain that are different in the customer facing part of the world.
Yeah, I agree. When I think about some of the work that's been done on route planning, or basically how do you go about trying to solve problems that has a very large solve space, and solve space being like, do I have 4 answers to choose from, or do I have 4 billion answers to choose from? In the cases when you have high complexity, more likely you have a lot of choices to choose from. So what's been really cool work that I recall is, if you all remember the Go competitions from about 6 years ago, actually, by DeepMind against Lee Sedol. One of the approaches that they used was, Go has a very large solve space. And instead of trying to work through every single one of them, they needed the application to develop essentially intuition. So they got it to both play a lot of games and to develop intuition, as well as use kind of a Monte Carlo type approach for figuring out where the best paths are. And then they let it rip. I think that there are a lot of business applications that have those same characteristics of, I have a lot of choices. I don't necessarily make choices based on data 100% of the time. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm using my intuition as a way of navigating to the right choice, even if it's not a perfect choice.
But as opposed to prior generations, which were trying to figure out how do we brute force explore more of that solve space, right? So if we just think about chess, most of us don't play Go, I presume. I don't. But just think about chess, there's, I don't know, there's like first move you can make, there's like maybe 18 or 20 different moves, right? Your opponent can make 18 or 20 different moves. And so in the past, the idea was, how do we get so that we can look further ahead? How do we get hardware to do that? And then at some point they just gave up and said, how do we get this thing to a point where it has intuition or memory, which is a bit of a learning or training type of thing, right? Yeah, it is. There's kind of an interesting story about Deep Blue. Mm-hmm. And they were not able to get it to look forward and plan forward. Like the way Deep Blue worked was, it would evaluate what's on the board and then see what's coming up. There were some conditions where they were like, there's too much going on, so hard code a certain move or type of moves. It made one of those moves during it. It totally threw Kasparov, because he's like, this looks weird. I don't understand it. He made a move a certain way, and eventually Deep Blue was able to come around and capitalize it and beat Kasparov at the game. But it wasn't necessarily because it was the best program out there ever. It was a little bit of a backdoor that they used when the problem became too difficult.
Yeah, I have a quote by Joe Doan, who was one of the programmers of Deep Blue, saying Deep Blue is not an AI project at all. That it's just massive amounts of processing power and memory. But let's bring this back to distributors, right? Because and I love the whole Lee Sedol story in AlphaGo. And I think it's an interesting illustration to describe how AI works and what differentiates it from other technologies. But for distributors, how do you explain what's the difference between AI and advanced technology? I mean, why not just call it, the next level of advanced technology? Why are we using this term artificial intelligence instead?
Yeah, I typically or historically, what AI is meant is the thing that's not here yet. It's always meant, like, whenever we master a certain technology, then we just call it that technology. Like, we don't call Roombas house AI. It's just a Roomba. Even though if we had backed up 20 years, like, that's a really impressive piece of technology and automation. I think that the reason we're calling it AI this time around is just because the advances have been so shocking. to have an object that is able to interact with us just like a person was, and to, at least I think, definitively answer the Turing test of proving that it can behave much like a person does, at least in terms of speech and interaction, the majority of the time, call it 80 to 90% of the time. This is what's really pushed us to use that term AI as opposed to fancy chatbot.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you and I have gone around on this. So what's your definition? Then I'll go with mine.
I think I've come around to a middle ground in our discussion. And I would say that today, what we call AI pretty much has to have learning. That was not always true.
Okay, right.
So if we look at a lot of these different technologies, you could do the things that we talked about without learning. But because we've got literally 60 million times as much compute power as we did 40 years ago, what we can do with learning makes all of these things so much better. So I would say today, what we call AI pretty much has to involve learning.
Yeah, and I didn't make that up. I got that from Dr. Michael Wu, but he says the way he differentiates AI from other technologies is AI is technology that learns. It gets better on its own. And if it doesn't get better on its own, it's not AI, which is, I don't think there's any like technically accurate or correct definition, but I think that one's convenient, so, because it's so easy to use examples like, Deep Blue didn't learn how to play chess. It came out of the lab with chess programmed into it, but AlphaGo learned how to play chess and learned how to play Go, and AlphaZero. And, it's like my wife's got this SUV and it does the lane keeping from the cars in front of it and around it. But it doesn't get better at that over time, right? An autonomous car does. It literally learns how to become a better driving car over time. And,
but that definition is narrow in a way that discounts previous AI work done. I mean, there was there's speech understanding in the 70s. DARPA funded all this stuff with speech understanding. It was doing some parameter adjustment, but I'm sure as heck would not call it learning. Got it. So we could do these things. We could do image recognition in the 80s. It took longer. It didn't learn. So I think his definition is too narrow. It insults previous work done in AI.
Got it.
I would just say that today AI involves learning.
But it's handy now.
It is handy now. Yes.
Okay. So what do you guys think? And Brooks, I guess we can start with you. But what's the role of using your technology vendors and prospective vendors at figuring out, where you can apply AI? I mean, you were at Zilliant for a long time. You're not there now, right? And there are a bunch of pricing vendors who are very early adopters of AI, at least in the world of distribution technology developers. And there are, analytics companies and ERP companies and other great technology companies. And we had a bunch of them at our event, and they really focused on teaching, sort of their applied AI, which was a good thing since that was the name of the event. What's the role in just learning from your suppliers as a distributor about where to get started with AI?
Yeah. We're all kind of choosing in what parts of the economy we want to specialize in. Yeah. As a distributor, we want to be excellent in terms of all of the tasks that distributors are great at and should be performing. Similarly, many of these both software and hardware vendors should be spending as much of their hard-earned cash as they can on becoming both great software companies, as well as looking out into the future and figuring out how they can either solve their customers' existing problems, as well as solve problems that their customers have wanted to solve but couldn't because the tools didn't exist or were just far too expensive. So I would really recognize that in industries that are working on thinner margins, this is really a time to look to your vendors to step up and provide strong thought leadership on how AI can be used to solve problems that either you see today or are coming. One other thing I would note in there is McKinsey did a study looking into how are the AI leaders versus AI, I wouldn't necessarily call them laggards, but just not leaders, perceiving their use of AI and prioritizing it. What they found was for those who were not leading, they were looking at efficiency plays. And for those who were earlier adopters and more innovative adopters, they were trying to figure out how can I either build a new business or solve a problem where I will either be more valuable to my end customer, or where I can go about creating a new line of business to grow my top line.
So they were looking at effectiveness, not just at efficiency.
That's right. That's right. How do I improve the overall value proposition of my organization?
And so in distribution, what might that look like? Is it going to mean better customer experience in some way? What does that look like in distribution?
Yeah. Some of this kind of reminds me of another automation or data automation approach. So there have been obviously a few ways of technology that have come through the general and industrial economies. And one of those was e-commerce. I would kind of look at AI somewhat as e-commerce in terms of the amount of impact, but I think it's going to touch more portions of your organization, such as sales, HR, operations, and so on. Administrative, certainly. So there was a moment when a lot of e-commerce solutions came out, and we as retail shoppers were like, hey, when I pull up my cart as I'm checking out, where are the cross-sell and upsell recommendations? How do I make sure that this works just as seamlessly as I was going through a retail shop or a retail e-commerce experience? That's really where the bar is set. And in the e-commerce realm, I think we're going to see something similar play out in the AI realm in terms of we're going to become accustomed as end users and as consumers of more and more AI experiences that make it easier for us to shop. So organizations are familiar with what we want to buy, when we want to buy it. I should be able to have any number of questions answered just immediately. I should know how to use a product, and also have very clear ideas about how I'll be serviced throughout the life cycle of that product. As consumers, I would expect that same criteria will be applied to the business realm. So what we see coming forth on the consumer side, and as we know, like ChatGPT is available to pretty much anybody on the planet.
Yeah.
That whole set of capabilities will then, I think, roll out and set expectations about how distributors and others are going to use it. So I know there's kind of a more specific answer to that question I'm happy to get to, but I'm also curious to hear what Ian and Jonathan have to say about it.
I think ease of use is a huge deal, which I think sort of underpins some of what you're talking about, right? Because if you make it super easy, because AI knows what I want, and it says, by the way, do you need this? And it's not just a sell job. It's like, oh my gosh, I almost ordered that fan without the fan blade or whatever, right? Then that's the convenience. And I think it's a big deal. Like, I don't know how they do it, but I have noticed that Amazon is the only place I order from on a regular basis where I don't have to put in any information to execute a purchase, right? Now that I'm set up, I don't have to put in a little code of my credit card. I don't have to put in my email address. I don't have to put in my zip code. I just put add to cart, ship, buy now, every place else. And I don't know how they do it, but it does. Just eliminating that last couple of steps, I think probably gets Amazon a lot of business, because it's just like 2 clicks and you're done, right? One click is picking the product. The second click is buy now, and you're done. And I don't know how many.
But what you're raving about there is advanced automation. the what else do I need to buy is the AI, which
Yeah.
Amazon does really well at, right?
Yeah, but is there some AI involved in fraud prevention? I mean, how does Amazon do that so that they don't wind up with a bunch of fraud? I mean, and why is it that literally no other website I can ever remember buying from doesn't have that functionality? And so now you pile on more kinds of, make it easy to use, like don't let me forget something because I just didn't think of it, even though I really need it. Help lead me to the right solution, which Amazon's terrible at, by the way, because they're so busy trying to sell you stuff on sponsored ads that they put all these barriers between, what you really want and your ability to buy it. But, I mean, I think the AI that makes it easier to do business is going to really help some distributors gain share. And, I don't know what that looks like yet. You guys are speechless.
No, I think I'm just
I think-
agreeing with you. I mean, I think it is going to create a better customer experience.
Okay.
Right? I mean, Brooks, what you referenced was things related to personalization, right? Personalization and relevance. And I think it is definitely going to create a better customer experience from shopping to buying to fulfillment. Right now, Ian, you and I have spoken about this. The difference between Amazon and distributors or other retailers on order notification, status notification, does AI end up playing a better role there? It's a huge difference right now between AI and distributors on that. Right? If distributors can solve that, that's a big win. So as we start to bring AI into supply chain, which is going to feed into when this product's really going to be available and all those sorts of things, that's also going to create a better customer experience. So I think if we look from shopping to buying to fulfillment to invoicing and payment to support, it's gonna affect all of those. And we've all had the experience of dealing with a chat bot or a warm body, like it's a person, but it's just kind of a warm body, and you're just like, you're pulling your hair out. I think we're at a point now where those chatbots are going to start to be pretty informative, and we'll move towards
being better.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, being better than the human.
Being better than the human, right? Yeah. And helping you put together solutions. So I think that the whole aspect of consultative selling is going to be partly automated, which is astounding, because I had thought that is the realm of human beings for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah. So sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
Please.
Okay. So I want to bring two things together and ask you both about them. One is this notion of consultative selling, which is that the chatbot, I mean, I thought chatbots were a decade away from being better than humans at anything. And I've always hated chatbots. Yeah. Now we can begin, because of my experience with ChatGPT, I can imagine a chatbot that can actually offer me better solutions and options and configurations than a human being can, because it knows everything, right? The second thing is, and we saw this at our show, right, where we had Rivalgo, Industrial Data Labs, and Connexium, and there was a pricing software company as well that is increasingly able to take these unstructured orders and turn them into ERP SKUs, right? So handwritten orders, give me 100 feet of Romex number, whatever, these, it's able to take these handwritten orders and transform them into ERP SKUs in ways that I found astounding. So now you've got this sales and customer service, this front end stuff that's always been the realm of human beings, because you need that sort of fuzzy logic that the brain can put together or that can manage. But that field seems to be transforming a lot faster than I anticipated. Do you guys see the same thing? And is this real, or do you think it's vaporware? Or, I mean, it's not vaporware, it's real, but do you think it's going to take over significant portions of customer service and sales activity and distributors anytime in the next few years?
I think in terms of, let me maybe separate out two types of sales.
Okay.
One is the order taking, and then the other is the kind of hunting and to some extent some of the farming type sales activities.
Right.
So I don't think that the human to human interaction of trust building and value prop conveyance is going to shift to chatbots. I
Okay.
think that is going to be a human to human activity for a very long time. However, the other items that you talked about in terms of, I have a question, I don't know what's going on with my order. I don't know why it seems like it's late. Hey, not everything came that I expected. I think all of those types of questions will be addressed in a more automated fashion than having to get somebody on the phone to go research it.
Hmm.
Also, the order taking. Hey, I need X, Y, and Z of these things. I think that is also going to very quickly move to AI-enabled solutions. And I don't think it's going to take long, because the value prop of being able to execute against that at like 1% of the cost that we look at today is going to be, I think, very difficult for organizations to ignore, either because of their own objectives, or because they are being forced into it because of competitive activity.
What do you think, Jonathan? You and I have had a lot of conversations about these tools.
I agree completely. Yeah.
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 Okay. We got 2 questions from the audience. Jeff says, for companies that have not adopted any AI solutions yet, how long does it take to implement the solutions in the 4 areas you mentioned? Brooks, he's looking at you here: route planning, pricing, warehouse optimization, and demand forecasting. So how long does it take to implement those solutions? How long will the AI need to be in place to drive real results? And what is the cost to get started with AI to the dollar? I'm just kidding. I mean, I threw in the last 3 words. What's the general cost to start
It
with
was
AI?
really to the lira or yen, I think.
It's to the penny.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jeff's a reasonable guy. I'm just adding to his question to confuse you. What do you think?
Yeah. I think there's a curve associated with cost and change as we go up Jonathan's framework. So it's like using something as a feature. Boy, you should be able to just turn that on and use it as is. Hopefully that's just included in the subscription or cost that you get as using that piece of software. So
Right.
low change, hopefully low to no cost. The next of using task-specific AI solutions, that I think is something that's going to be a net new buy. And the cost might be quite low, like $30 a user. It's probably what we're going to see out of Microsoft soon enough. There are going to be a new set of capabilities, and I'm going to have to learn how to adapt my workflow and business to those new capabilities. But that's going to look more like, hey, let's have some lunch and learns. Let's begin how to go through like one session of learning this thing. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be afraid of it. Instead, they're probably going to say, freaking finally. I've been doing this work the same way for the past 15 years. I can't believe it's always been the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And then for the next one up of generative, this is all very new. So we don't know what the total costs are. Some of the initial projects that we hear around this are things like, how can I match my data together? How can I create kind of meanings that are the same? How do I go about also doing some more interesting things like chatbots or vectorize all of my documents?
Right.
Those are going to be some projects that are just kind of getting going, and I expect those to be more like 3 to 9 month implementations. With a big difference in terms of what you're doing. If you're pulling in a new product and it's a plugin to an existing tool you have, maybe that's a month. If you are instantiating an entirely new process, then you have a fair amount of cost, probably have to have a team in place, and you're going to have some change and likely fear associated with that change.
Got it.
Some of these, though, are going to be, once you get it implemented, it's going to be really quick time to value. Like literally, if you're on a monthly subscription for something, it could be your third or fourth monthly payment and you're at break even on some of these. So I'm thinking about things like, pricing, whether it's AI based or not. You have a lot of experience on this. I mean, you get to break even really quickly on that.
Yeah.
And we've seen other things like the stuff that Ian referenced, the order automation, where it's taking an email and putting it in the ERP. I mean, again, you get to break even super quick on that. So I would say it depends in terms of the actual time to value.
Yeah, time to value, what I've seen in some of those AI solutions on the sales opportunity identification, pricing opportunities, I've seen paybacks there first month, where
Wow.
it paid for the entire project.
Mhm.
I've seen others that it was like 100 to 1 payback within the first 6 months.
Wow. Okay, so you're talking in terms of break even and then getting a positive return more so than the cost. So because the cost is going to vary a lot based on the nature of the solution and the size of the enterprise, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So Betsy, hi Betsy, has a question for Brooks. Given all the possible places for a distributor to start with AI in their business, can you speak to the value of doing an analysis of your pain points with AI vendors who have relevant business experience to identify AI priorities for you and getting started and making incremental progress in your AI roadmap? So did you start by, basically doing an analysis of your pain points with some vendors that you trust who have AI solutions and getting started and making some incremental progress? Is that the right place to start, or is that a good place to start?
I think that really depends on whether you've chosen the functional area to make the
Right.
changes already.
Right.
If you are, anybody who sells hammers is going to recommend more hammers for the solution, obviously.
Right.
So yeah, you're in terms of trust. I would either work with a vendor that has a pretty broad portfolio, or work with a vendor who you think can do a good job in terms of that consultative sell.
Right.
Otherwise, I would go to, say, conferences and other kind of knowledge sharing opportunities within the industry to see where people are making changes.
Got it. And Amit's back with a comment. We implemented AI for pricing optimization, and our reps did not trust the advice they were getting from the AI. Change management is key. I was thinking of that, Amit. That's been my experience as well. Is the change management is every bit as important as the software and the analytics, because otherwise people will override the advice that they're getting.
Yeah. I'd like to. It's going to take people a while in order to become comfortable with the recommendations that are coming to support these decisions.
Yeah.
There was a study that I believe Zillion did, and other organizations have engaged in this as well, which was they on the control received a recommendation, and then the test set received a recommendation and a confidence score. And the reps who were in that test set had far more confidence in the recommendations because they knew which ones to ignore, that they were going to have to think about some more, versus the ones that they could just use as is with higher confidence scores. So the change management activity is quite important. That can really go into even the design of these systems or which ones you choose to go do first. As another example here, there are sometimes trade-offs in between how sophisticated of a solution do you pursue versus how easily can you explain that system to the constituents that are going to use it. So in the case of sales, it's like you can say, hey, listen, this optimization or this sales opportunity considers these 4 things, and just those 4 things. And that should map up pretty well with how you think of it. versus, hey, these are 16 attributes or 27 attributes that it sometimes considers, and it changes this based on how things are going every day. It's like, wow, sophisticated. 2 thumbs up for that second one. But in terms of understandability and adoption, kind of
Yeah, got it.
But some of the issues with adoption and change management are not indigenous to AI, right?
Right,
I mean,
that's right.
Before there was AI-based pricing, there was pricing.
Right. You still have the
And
same problems.
You still have the same problems with change management. So
yeah. Hey, last question here then before we wrap up. Sean wants to know, what conferences would you recommend to attend in the near future for my distribution business? Before you guys answer, I will say we will be back with another AI event next year. It was such a huge success. We'll be doing it again. So Brooks, I hope you'll join us for that one as well. So listen for that sometime in the near future. We'll be announcing some information about that event. We're very, very excited. So Sean, thank you for that. Are there any other conferences that come to mind, Brooks, that people should be attending on this subject? Or man, we had the first one, and I'm sure there'll be others, but right now the only one.
Yeah, certainly there's some other kind of typical names that have put some focus on AI as part of their conference, but now is absolutely the time to go to the conferences if you have been holding off or thought that you didn't really have much of a reason to go, that it's just going to be kind of the same old, same old. It is not the same old any longer.
Right.
Now is the time to invest in some of these industry-wide groups to engage with, either conversationally or by attending and networking and seeing what others are doing, and and also kind of what the vendor space is doing.
Right. Let's see here. So Cherry, yay, it was a great event, and Brooks, you killed it. Thank you for hosting Ian and Jonathan. Hopefully you're back to normal. Ian, I guess I'm back to abnormal, I would say, but thank you for the good wishes. I really appreciate it. I do feel great now. Brooks, I want
for you, that's normal, Ian.
I'm back to my normal, abnormal.
Yeah.
Is this the right email address for you? I wanted to add it to this slide here, brooks.hamilton@gmail.com.
Yeah, there's also brooks.hamilton@strategyadvisors.ai.
brooks.hamilton@strategyadvisors.ai. Or brooks.hamilton@gmail.com. So sorry if I got the wrong one here. Okay. If you guys could hold on for one more minute, on October 24th, we have a technology leader panel. What a great group of people. It's about navigating the digital customer experience frontier and wholesale distribution. We'll have Jason Hine, one of our most contributing audience members, who's going to be on a panel. We're really excited. He's the principal B2B visionary at Bloomreach. Dave Bent, good friend of ours, senior VP at ECI Software Solutions. Then we'll have a guest panelist to be named from SAP. So that's sponsored by Bloomreach, SAP, and ECI Evolution X. And then Brooks will be back on November 8th for a full webinar on how distributors should build their AI roadmap. November 8th, these are both at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That one's brought to you so far by Oracle NetSuite. We may have some other sponsors before then. Brooks, we're really looking forward to having you back and getting more of your brain downloaded to us and our audience. But thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I learned a lot as always, but we really appreciate you being here.
It's a blast as always, guys. And it's wonderful talking to the abnormally normal Ian.
Yeah.
That's where we live.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Says the guy wearing the C3PO shirt. So,
yeah.
All right, you guys, thanks very much for everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time on a distribution strategy group program. Until then, be well and learn about your AI. Bye now.